Okay, I did a video a while ago showing the right way and the wrong way to wrap around the diabolo. That was a clickbait title. If you were noticing that video, I had the turntable turned 90 degrees from this current position right now. It was turned like this, something like this, right? And I have mounted my meter on this post, and then the string before entering the diabolo, doesn't matter if I go above it or below it, is gonna make contact with this 12 o'clock post. If I go above it, the contact that it makes, it's kind of like barely, but it's still touching. You see, it's like scraping right now. Unless I remove this, then it improves some. So he mentioned that as I go under the diabolo, that's when it's touching the most. If I go under the diabolo, you see I'm forced to press this part of the string down lower, therefore it's making contact with that. I'm making this video to show you that this extra stretch put on the string makes about a 0.7 pound difference. This piece for sure. So in order to do a quick comparison and eliminate this contact, I decided to turn my turntable around 90 degrees like so and lock it like so, and then I'm gonna use this base clamp and the string clamp as a way to mount this digital meter, so this string can have uninterrupted access to the puller without anything making contact with it. See what I'm saying? This string will be entirely free. I had to use this meter as opposed to this meter simply because I can't get this meter to mount properly from this ring. It's not gonna fit anywhere unless I devise something fancy that sticks out of this post, and then I could attach to that maybe a piece of long rod of some sort, but I don't want to risk ruining my base clamp. So I've since put my original clamp back in. It works for this application the best because I would put this hook over the base clamp like that, and then part of this end rests on part of the clamp handle. That's okay, as long as the string can exit this digital meter relatively flat. That will serve my purpose. And you know what? Let me close, because as I pull it, the string clamp is in the open position and it's gonna have an effect on my meter. So let me also close this clamp so both sides of the teeth are making firm contact with each other, so there's no possible movement there. No, much less possible movement there. I'll also turn on the 10% pre-stretch. With pre-stretch turned on, the tension is much more stable. Comes up to the reference, should come up much quicker. Settles at about 49.7, as you can see, 0.6 right now, 0.8, 0.9. I do believe that would be interesting to show what the final dynamic tension is after stringing an actual racket and comparing the two different methods with and without the pre-stretch. I have a feeling that with pre-stretch you're going to get a higher dynamic tension while holding all the other variables the same. Let me just run a comparison. That's the purpose of this video, is to run it below the diabolo like this. Okay, tear, pull. It exceeded 51 before for a second. 51, it's at 51 right now. 50.9, 51, 0.9, 0.8, 0.9. All right, let's call it 50.9. It's gonna be close enough. I'll measure it again for good measures. For good measures. Well, this time is barely 50.5. first measurement was 50.9, second measurement was 50.5. And I don't like how this under no tension is showing some negative tension. So let me repeat the measurement. .6, 50.7, 50.6, 0.7. All right, so between 50.9 to 50.6 this time. Let's just call it 50.7. Well, it's 50.7 now. If you run it below, you're gonna get about 0.7 to 0.8 pounds difference. Oh no, actually, running above was 49.7. Running it below is 50.7. So the difference is 1 pound. 1 pound. I think in my previous study with the string going this way, making contact with this post, the difference was as high as like 1.8, 1.7 or 1.8 pounds. Now we've eliminated that contact, we're getting a difference of about 1 pound. It's still higher by running it below the diabola. Hopefully I prove a point there. And now, well, some people, and the follow-up question is, some people were asking me, well, what about if you go like this versus like this? The findings before is that if I go like this versus not wrapping it, I get here's the data right here. Actually, it's my normal way going above. I got 50.4 last time. By wrapping it as if I'm stringing a soft string, wrapping it clockwise against the diabola, I got 50.7. So I got 0.3 pounds higher. Let's see if we get the same difference this time. So I'll wrap it like this. $49.6, $49.6, $49.8, $49.7, $50, $49.7, $49.6, $49.7, $49.9. So it's fluctuating. It's pretty close to 49.7. I don't see big enough of a difference to call it more or less. Let me turn off pre-stretch and wrap it around the diabola like so. $49.8, $49.4, .7, .6, .5, .4, .8, .5, 49.7, 49.8. Yeah, it's pretty much around 49.7. And let me repeat it the normal way by just going above it. $49.4, $49.2, $49.5, $49.3, $49.3, $49.5. So, okay, so I'm looking at between 49.4 doing it this way versus 49.7 wrapping around. So that difference is real. The difference you get by wrapping around is about 0.3. About 0.3 pounds difference. Okay, so we got 50.7 by going under. And before we also got from straight going under to the puller to going under and then wrapping around counterclockwise to before going to the puller, we get an additional 0.3 pounds of difference. And that was the previous finding before. Let's see if we get the same difference now. $49.50, 50.6, 50.6, 50.4, 50.7. So So we got 50.7 by going under, and it looks like 50.7, and then wrapping it counterclockwise, we get even lower, 50.6. And I have a feeling part of this, what we're seeing, is because this piece of poly has been stretched out versus when we first started making the measurements. So therefore I'm gonna have to repeat the measurement I did, going under, straight under, and then up. .7, 0.5, 0.3, 0.8, 50.7, 50.9, 50.7, 0.8. Alright, so settled at 50.8. Now let's wrap it counterclockwise. Still 50.8. So it looks like I was correct initially by answering that the matchup, and that whether you run it without under diabolo without wrapping it versus if you wrap it counterclockwise like this, there should be no difference, because this going from the point under diabolo to into the tensioner, this portion is exactly the same, and force is being supported by under diabolo, whether you wrap it 360 degrees or not. You know, this portion of the string at this point is being supported. All right, let's repeat it one last time. This is with no wrapping. .5, 0.4, 50.8, 0.7, 50.5. That's a little lower this time, 50.5. Let's run it and wrap it and measure. 50.5. Yeah, it's pretty much close enough. Anywhere from 50.7 to 50.8. Whereas no wrapping it was 50.5. So wrapping it this way, does bring it up higher. Wrapping it this way, I mean, not much higher, but maybe a couple, maybe 0.2 pounds higher. .6, 50.6, 0.5, 50.5. All right, let's wrap it again. .7, 0.6, 0.4, 0.7, 0.6, 51, 50.8, 0.7, 0.9. All right, so I'm seeing like about 0.2 to 0.3 difference. The same difference if you go above it and wrapping it clockwise. So I guess if you repeat the measurements, you get a more accurate data, but I don't want to spend that much time right now. But let's turn on the pre-stretch just to show that with 10% pre-stretch, it shouldn't make a difference with this test. Let's go under. See, we pre-stretch. The good thing is that the poundage doesn't drop because it pre-pulls it by 10% higher to begin with. 50.6, 50.7, and the readings are more stable with the pre-stretch. 50.6, 0.7. Let's just call it 50.7. It's 0.8 now, but yeah. Okay, then let's wrap it counterclockwise with 10% pre-stretch. Tear it. .5, 0.7, 50.7, 0.7, 0.6, 0.7. So what this is proving is that if I have the pre-stretch turned on 10%, I'm not seeing a difference whether you go down versus you go down and wrap it counterclockwise. How about if we turn on a case of higher pre-stretch, I crank it up to 20%. The highest pre-stretch that can be set on this machine is 25%. Let's test that 20%. I just go above it. .49.4, 49.2, 0.4, 49.3. Let's call it 49.3. All right, now I'll wrap it clockwise with 20% pre-stretch. So we got 49.3 before. Let's see what the 20% pre-stretch value gets us. I mean, we got 49.3 before. So it looks like this is giving us 49.7, about 0.3 pounds. About 0.6, 0.7, about 0.2 or 0.3 pounds more. It is a little higher when you wrap it. Doesn't matter if you go above or below. Let's go below with 20% pre-stretch. .6, 50.5, okay, we'll call it 50.5. 50.5. So that is about one pound higher than if you just go above it, which agrees with our findings before. So let's go down below and wrap it counterclockwise. With 20%, no wrapping, I got 50.5 or 50.6. Now we wrapped it. You get 50.8, or briefly, from 50.5 to 50.6. That was not much better. I mean, not much higher. Let me repeat it. Wrapping and not wrapping. I'm gonna zero this out. Sorry, I meant to go below. .5. Same as before, 50.5. Now let's wrap it counterclockwise. Make sure I totally zero it out. 50.52. To 50.2 only. Oh, now it's 0.5. How come there's no difference? I'm gonna repeat this one more time. .3, 50.5. So I'll have to say that wrapping it counterclockwise versus not wrapping it and going below didn't make a difference with 20% pre-stretch. So let me lower that down to 10%. Repeat the measurements. 10% pre-stretch, going under the diagonal, I get 50.2, 0.6, 0.5, 0.4, 0.3, 0.5. About the same as the value that we got with 20% pre-stretch, isn't it? Yeah. Let's call it 50.4. And then I'll measure it by going counterclockwise. It was 50.4 without wrapping, so now it's 50.3, 50.4, 50.4. 0.5, 0.4. So I will have to say that the difference is not significant enough for me to definitely say that it's wrapping is definitely higher or lower. How about going above? Going above and then wrapping, we got 1 pound difference, didn't we? Oh no, that's between going above it and going under, we got 1 pound difference. But if we go just above versus above and then wrapping it clockwise, should be about 2 or 3.2 or 0.3 pounds difference. $49.3, $49.6, $49.5, 0.4, 0.2. We'll call it 49.4. Seems like this piece of string is getting stretched out and it's slowly losing tension. 49.4. Now let's wrap it clockwise. From 49.4 to 49.7. 49.4, 49.9, 49.8, 0.7. Yeah, so it's, oh, now it's dropping toward 49.4. So yeah, the difference observed here is greater than going under. So I see a 0.2 to 0.3 pounds difference whether you just go above it into the puller or you go above it, wrap it clockwise before going into the puller. Get a little bit higher tension. Alright, so maybe I'll next time I calibrate it this way. Yeah, I know these measurements look pretty confusing and messy. That's why I contemplated about whether or not to release this video. So just take the results with a little grain of salt, because it's not very conclusive, because there are just too many variables. There's differences between no pre-stretch and 10% pre-stretch and 20% pre-stretch versus wrapping and no wrapping, and then wrapping it above or wrapping it under. It's a mess. Basically, went ahead and deleted all the readings from the 20% as well as the no stretch data. So what we got left is all the 10% pre-stretch data. Then somewhere between after a certain number of measurements, the poly string totally stretched out. Elasticity must have dropped a lot, and therefore my readings were like coming out lower than the earlier repeats of the same measurements. That's why I separated two groups. But what this exercise does show is that if you look at the darker green rows, you can see that the difference between going straight under versus going straight over is anywhere from 0.6 pounds high to 0.9 pounds high on average. So compare with what I got from my earlier videos measured with the other portable meter. I was getting about 1.7 pounds higher there under the same conditions with the string touching, making contact with part of the 12 and 6 o'clock post. That's why it was getting 1.7 pounds higher there versus we're looking at, through this exercise, we're looking at anywhere from 0.6 to 0.9 pounds higher only by removing that restriction against the string. As we all know that in reality, during every pull, the string has to go through a grommet. So there's friction and force acting on the string, restricting it as well. So in order to be absolutely accurate, perhaps somebody can set up this experiment or this measurement up with a digital meter and with the racket mounted at the same time in order to mimic a true realistic tension measurement scenario. So as you can see, when I try to wrap it from above clockwise, I was getting 49.7 pounds. That's even lower than not wrapping it initially. The string is already bagged out by then, or because of the fact that there is no obstruction on the piece of string. And on the light green line, you'll also see that if I wrap it from under, which means from under and then counterclockwise, I was getting 50.5 pounds. That's only 0.7 pounds higher versus going straight above and not wrapping it. It's only 0.1 pound higher versus straight under and not wrapping it. So there's not much difference there. And then I repeated measuring, going straight over without wrapping, and got 0.4 pounds lower than the initial reading, which further proves that the string may have been bagged out. I want to thank the viewer for giving me the idea to remove that restriction that was the string was run against in my previous measurements. So now that that restriction has been removed, the increased tension I'm able to get by running the string under the diabolo is only about 0.7 to 0.8 pounds, not like 1.7 pounds that was shown previously. And all right, hopefully I don't have to do any more tension measurements for a good while. Thank you very much for watching. If there's any comments or questions, please put it below. Take it easy.